Hey there, my name is Eva Lise, and welcome to my very first ever deck profile. So, I wanted to start doing these deck profiles because I have a lot of thoughts on deck building and competitive play, and sometimes they just kind of sit there, and I don't get to fully express them, or I just put them in a tweet, and I wanted to give kind of a longer form version of that, just for posterity and uh, for my own desires, I guess, but also because I want to widen the scope of this game. I want more people to be playing it, more people to be talking about deck building, and more people to be able to share their ideas and make these even better. The greatest thing that we can do is build more community around this game, and I hope to be a positive part of that. So, I want to thank anyone who's encouraged me to do things like this and to stick my neck out there a little bit more because I can always use that. So thank you. So the deck that we're going to be doing a profile today is on Marincess. I'm probably going to say Marincess or Marincess different ways, like 2 or 3 different ways throughout the video just because I'll be forgetful. So this is a deck profile post Duels from the Deep. Duels from the Deep is the TCG version of the OCG's Duelists from the Abyss that is going to be coming out in early June. Now, part of the thing with this set is that it features a very poor picture of Mako Tsunami on the cover in the TCG because they think that we only watch Duel Monsters. Yeah, it's fine as long as the ghost rare in the set isn't going to be like the first legendary fisherman. I was introduced to this deck by my friend Juan, aka JFez8, on Twitter, so go give him a follow for some really cool stuff on things like speedroids. I really like this deck. This deck is a group of water Cyberse monsters, and they're played by Aoi Zaisen in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime. So it is an anime deck, but don't worry, it's a good one. It's a good one. And a lot of it is focused on conserving your resources. So a lot of the monsters add back Marincess cards to your hand, or some of the non-archetypal ones will also help with this, and I'll show a little bit of how that goes in just a second here. But without further ado, I'm going to take a sip of water, and let's get into the deck profile. So first off, we start with the best starter in the deck, 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang. On normal or special summon, she sends 1 Marincess monster from your deck to the graveyard, except herself. And when she is linked off for a linked summon, she is able to excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if there is a Marincess card among those, you can add one of those to your hand. This card is excellent. Sometimes you need that extra extender that you will be adding after you foolish it, and sometimes it is just fantastic ash bait. It is also great because it helps with chain blocking. So this can help when you link this off into your link 1, whichever one it might be, Sea Angel or Blue Slug, to be able to prevent them from getting gammaed, from getting hit with ash in some instances. So she is really good. She is your best starter. Your second best starter is Marincess Seahorse. She doesn't do anything on normal summon, but she can be added back to your hand from Blue Slug, and then she can special summon to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to. So what you do is Seahorse, Blue Slug effect, add back Seahorse, Seahorse, special summon, and then you go off from there. She also has an effect where, besides the turn she was sent to the graveyard, you can banish her from the graveyard to special summon a water monster from your hand. So if you just happen to have Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju in your hand, and she was in your graveyard beforehand, go for it. You're not going to use that effect very often, but it's there, in case you want it. Your next card is your best extender. So if Seahorse is like your second best starter and your second best extender, this is your best extender. Marincess Spring Girl, which is a new card that's coming out. So you can banish one Marincess monster from your graveyard and special summon this card from your hand. This is extremely useful because sometimes you will get your normal summon on like Tang or something gammaed, or they'll use some sort of destruction effect and send it to the graveyard. And then because a lot of your Marincess monsters special summon to zones Link monsters point to, or you need a one monster on board, you're going to be kind of SOL. But Spring Girl really helps to make that not as treacherous waters to be in. I'm just gonna apologize ahead of time for the water puns that are it's just gonna happen, so. Also, when she is used for a Link summon, she can send the top two cards of your deck, the top cards of your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of Marincess monsters on your field. This is also really useful for chain blocking if you're going into Sea Slug, or Sea Angel, because Sea Angel is going to add a Marincess spell from your deck to your hand. But you can stop that getting ashed by chain blocking with Spring Girl, because the Spring Girl mill is really not that important, but it is really great for being able to chain block this, because Sea Angel is going to be real important. We'll go into that in a second. One copy of Mandarin. If she's in your hand or graveyard and you control two or more Marincess Link monsters, you can special summon her to a zone a water Link monster points to, but she gets banished when she leaves the field. This card was better when we had less Marincess support, but now it's a decent one of. You could make an argument even for 2. I've played it at 2 sometimes. It's a nice extender, but Spring Girl outshines her in every way. Next one is another new one, Marincess Sleepy Maiden. So, you can target one Marincess card you control, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, that card gains this effect. It cannot be destroyed by card effects. So, Sleepy Maiden is an excellent extender, a very good post-Nibiru play as well. The only thing that I don't like about her is that I really wish she wasn't a level 5. She does have that 2500 booty, which is great, but it would make this so much better if she was a level 4. I'd probably be more tempted to play more copies of her and do things in the extra deck like going into Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. But you just don't usually get there, unless you have a really cracked hand. Now that's the end for the Marincess monsters. There are a couple that I don't play. So a couple of them, one that you'll see frequently is Marincess Pascalis. Pascalis, I don't play it because if she gets negated, it's really bad. She doesn't have a effect when she's linked off, and she just special summons a Marincess from your hand. And she can't special summon herself from hand, so if you have 2 Pascalis in hand, it's just kind of a dead card. She does kind of come up in the grind game sometimes to add a wave back to your hand, but maybe I play it as a one-of. I've experimented with it. Maybe yes, maybe no. The other ones, you really don't need to worry about them. Bisalima, Bisalima, and Crowntail, terrible cards. Sea Star, no. You don't need them. You really don't. The best non-Marincess extender, Silent Sea Nettle. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you're locked into water monsters. Oh no! What a problem. So many non-water monsters in this deck that I'm actually going to summon. It is fine. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target up to 3 water monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them back into the deck. This is so good for your grind game. I adore this card. It is the perfect extender. It helps your grind game even more and just makes it so that you are not going to be running out of materials if this card's in your graveyard anytime soon. Especially if you can recycle another copy of itself back into your deck for later. Awesome. Great card. Next, we go into the Going Second and Disruption cards. So, play 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Ogre, 2 Effect Veiler, and 2 Imperm. So why 2 Effect Veiler and 2 Imperm? Well, Your Marincess Great Bubble Wreath can banish a water monster from your graveyard or field and draw a card. So if you're drawing an Imperm off of it, it's not going to be very good. If you draw a Veiler, it's pretty useful. So even though in a lot of situations Imperm is not going to be as good as Veiler, it still comes up quite a bit. And you have a lot of ways to negate monster effects in this deck, so it's okay to play 2 and 2. Nib, if you see this along with another hand trap, you are golden, baby. Ash, it's Ash. She's generically good. You're probably going to hear it in every deck profile, but there you go. Ghost Ogre. Hits so many things in this format, including this deck. Ghost Ogre is not fun for this deck in a lot of scenarios. But if every deck's going to keep playing Adventurer, you got to play 3 copies of Ghost Ogre. That's just how it is, and she's good. So, on some of your other cards, in some of your other going second cards, you can also talk about the Cosmic Cyclone and the 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. This deck is budget except for Droplet. I don't even have Droplet myself yet, but Droplet is so good in this deck. So, I'll be able to go into more of why it's so good in a second, but trust me, it is incredible. A copy of Cyclone, we play 2 in the side deck, or I've played 2 in the side deck, so it's fine, it comes up sometimes. I always just like to have at least 1 piece of Spell and Trap Destruction, just to be on the safe side. 1 Called by the Grave, it's Called by the Grave. I wish this card were banned. What you gonna do? 3 copies of Signet Mining. This helps with your consistency. I hate that you have to go and send a card from your hand to the graveyard for this. It's really unfortunate, and it's even more so if you're playing under Dimension Shifter. Thanks, Flunderies. But it can help with your consistency a lot. And if you could send something like Sea Nettle or Mandarin, it's pretty good. 2 copies of Marincess Dive. This is an amazing extender. So, you can either basically E-Tally or Monster Reborn with this. If you don't have the field spell up, Battle Ocean, it's a Monster Reborn for a Marincess non-Link monster. And if you have Battle Ocean up, you just special summon from deck. So if you didn't have access to Blue Tang before, there you go. Problem solved. I would like to play 3 of this, but if you draw this with no Marincess, it's just a dead card for a turn, which can be very unfortunate. 1 copy of Battle Ocean. I think about playing this card at 2, but here's what's up with Battle Ocean. All Marincess monsters you control gain 200 attack. Also, each one gains 600 attack for each Marincess card equipped to it. Monsters you control in the extra monster zone that were special summoned using Marincess Crystal Heart, this baby right here, are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. People don't read this, and it's really funny. When you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, you can equip up to 3 Marincess Link monsters with different names from your graveyard to that link summon monster. This card is great. It is really good because it gives your monsters an 1800 boost, well, a 2000 boost, with the 3 link monsters and the plus 200 from the card itself. So it can get you some really funny situations where you link summon into a blue slug and it can it can crash into an Eldritch that was special summoned from grave the turn before, which is just hilarious. I think it's so funny. This is kind of the heart and soul of your deck in a lot of ways. You don't necessarily need it to win, but you really, really want to have it. And 2 copies of Wave. This card is wild. So, if you control a Marincess Link monster, target a face-up monster your opponent controls, negate that face-up monster's effects until the end of this turn. Then, if you control a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster, all face-up monsters, all of them, not just the Marincess ones, you control are currently unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of this turn. So it basically just makes every monster on your board a towers for a turn. Rad. I love it. And if you control Link 3 or higher, you can just activate this card from your hand. you basically turn into a Harpy's Feather Storm with, if you have a Harpy on board. Except it's more like an imperm. This card and Droplet is the interaction that I love. So, let's say you have a Marincess Link monster. Say you have a Link 3 like Coral Triangle. That's equipped with Coral Anemone. You can use Forbidden Droplet. So you use Wave. You basically imperm something. Use Forbidden Droplet. You negate something else. You send Coral Anemone to the graveyard. Coral Anemone can add a Marincess card back to your hand from the grave when it's sent to the graveyard. So you can just add back Wave, and you might notice something. I don't see once per turn on this. So, you're just going to get basically another imperm if you want to use it. It's great. So that is the main deck. Now I can go a little bit into your extra deck. So, in your extra deck, you play 2 copies of Sea Angel. Formerly, this card just searched your field spell, but now it also searches Dive, which is super nice. So if you open Battle Ocean, or you open Dive, you can just grab one of the other ones. It's excellent. 3 copies of Marincess Blue Slug. So Blue Slug is a card that when it's link summoned, you can add a Marincess card back to your hand. A Marincess monster. And then you get locked into water monsters. But once again, we're not worried about it. So having 5 link 1s is great for your grind game and your recovery. This deck comes back like no other. Marincess Crystal Heart. It is unaffected by your opponent's monster effects while it's in the extra monster zone. If somebody tries to Nibiru while this is the only card you have up, it is hilarious because there's like, why the Nibiru no go? It's like, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta read. And if you link summon a monster in the extra monster zone while Battle Ocean is up, it's unaffected while Battle Ocean is still in the field. So this is great for going into any of your link 3s or link 4s because they're just going to be unaffected. It's great. It's very important for a card like Aquaargonaut. 2 copies of Coral Anemone. This card just takes 2 water monsters. You can target a water monster with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Special summon it to your zone this card points to. So, you can special summon Crystal Heart and go into an easy link 4. You can grab Splash Mage back to go into a link 4. World's kind of your oyster with this. I'm not sorry about that one either. So, also, when it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Marincess card back to your hand. This effect comes up all the time. You need to play 2 copies of this, no less. No less, no less. Then these are the link 2s that are not the Marincess cards, but they come in handy. Splash Mage helps you with some awkward hands to be able to get into your link 3s and link 4s sometimes. You could also use this along with a transcode and access code package to push for game. Absolutely possible. I don't like that as much because I like kind of playing this more pure and not having to manage the water lock. I like being able to just kind of chill with this and only having this Cyber's lock and the water lock that's already present, so I don't have to worry about transcode and access code stuff. Area the Water Charmer. This is if you Nibiru somebody or they Nibiru you. So, just takes 2 water monsters, and you might be able to get something out of it. Maybe you get a Moe, maybe you get a Chen Ying or something. It comes up sometimes, but it's mostly just for linking off an errant Nibiru token, or crashing and being able to search one of your starters. Marincess Coral Triangle is wild. This is another one of the new cards, and it is so funny. So, you can send a water monster from your hand to your graveyard, add a Marincess trap. Just add Wave. Just add the card that makes this card a Towers. Cool. The sneaky effect that people don't know. If only your opponent controls a monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Special summon any number of water link monsters from your graveyard whose total link ratings equal 3. So if they clear your field and they're, sitting pretty and think that they're going to get away with it, you can just special summon back Anemone and Sea Angel or Slug and just easily rebuild like nothing ever happened. It's awesome. I love this card. I would think about playing it at 2, but it's not really, it doesn't add things back to your hand necessarily, and I haven't really run into too many scenarios where I needed a second copy of it. Marincess Marble Rock. This card just allows you to add Marincess cards back to your hand, and it also provides some battle protection for your Marincess monsters. You have to send a card from your hand to the graveyard for it. It's not great, but I really like being able to recycle even more of this, so it's definitely a card I like keeping in the deck. Marincess Aquaargonaut. This is the new Link 4. This deck has 4 Link 4s. It's wild. Aquaargonaut. Your opponent's monsters cannot attack other monsters while this card is in the extra monster zone. You can target one water monster you control and one card your opponent controls. Return them to the hand. Yoink. Bounce things back. When a spell or trap card or effect is activated on the field during your opponent's turn... Quick effect. You can special summon one of your Marincess cards equipped to this card, and if you do, negate that activated effect. So there are a few interesting things about this. 1, it's only on your opponent's turn, so just make sure you know that. 2, you have to special summon a Marincess card that it's equipped with. So if your opponent ogres this, it's basically like if it was an Appaloosa or a Naturia Beast. It will not resolve, and will not negate, unfortunately. Unless you summon it with Marincess Crystal Heart, then you're Gucci. It's totally fine. And another thing about this is that it'll gain attack, and this will be sitting at 4,300 with Battle Ocean up and 3 monsters attached to it. The other Link 4, this is probably the one that most people would take out for the Bahamut chart and totally awesome. Wonderheart. This kind of helps you in battle. So once per battle during damage calculation, if this card battles a monster, you can special summon one of your Marincess monster cards equipped to this card. Also, this card cannot be destroyed by that battle, and you take no battle damage. So I really like this because you can special summon this and equip it with any of your Marincess monsters, and then they'll special summon themselves, and then you can continue link climbing after it. It's really cool. I really like this card, and though a lot of people cut it, I think it should stay in the deck. You can OTK with this too in some situations, even though it's more of a control deck. And the last one is Marincess Great Bubble Wreath, aka Great Bubble Beef. So, Great Bubble Wreath allows you to banish a water monster from a graveyard or field to draw a card. And each time a monster is banished face up, this card gains 600 attack for each until the end of this turn. So I've had this card at like 8,300 attack. It is really funny. It's very good. And then you can also send a water monster from your hand to the graveyard and special summon one of your banished Marincess monsters. So you might special summon your Coral Triangle and add another wave to hand. You might banish something with Spring Girl and then bring it back. It comes up a lot. These cards all have very interesting uses, and they come up in different niche situations. So, that is the deck profile, and I am a little bit lightheaded from talking too much. But I think this deck is really cool and really fascinating. This is kind of a side deck that I've had for it. So some of these things are pretty self-explanatory, but I will explain some more of the options. Skill Drain is really interesting in this deck because you will still have, as long as you have a Link 1, you'll have a 3,500 beat stick at least. If not, you'll have a 4,000 beat stick, 3,500, a 4,500, 43, 44, 46, and maybe more. So, Skill Drain does come up sometimes. It's a very interesting card to keep around in the deck. I kind of like it. You can also make an argument for things like Gozen Match. And you can also play stuff like Dimensional Barrier, whatever your meta needs, but I've been liking Skill Drain in it. Just because there are very few things that can contest with something under Skill Drain. And some of the other options you can have, I talked about Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. They're really good in this deck, but it's only usually when you have a really cracked hand. Because you're not really going to have the material for it, and then you're going to miss some of the chain blocking that you get from Spring Girl and Blue Tang, things like that. So I just don't really like it that much in the deck, but that might change. If I put Pascalis back in the deck, maybe I would start putting them in the deck too. But we'd have to see. So, with that, that's the end of this deck profile. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to make more in the future. So if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much for doing so. I'll try to be more concise and less nervous. I am not always the best at kind of keeping my nerves under control, so I hope to work on that in the future. But thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.